So we've been talking about Henry II. We mentioned common law. And now here is Richard the Lionhearted. Where have you heard this name before?
Robin Hood.
Robin Hood.
Yes. I have seen almost every version.
Robin Hood Men in Tights?
Or Men.
Don't know about that one.
You've never seen that?
No, I have not.
What? That's the best Robin Hood. It's so funny.
I've seen it.
Can't say that I've watched that one.
It is so funny.
Yes, Gavin, would you shut those blinds behind you, please?
Mr. Jones, you
And-
have to watch Robin Hood Men in Tights. You have to.
Yeah, that'll work. I do, huh?
Yes. It's like one of our family movies.
Okay. Well, maybe sometime I will make that a priority.
Men in Tights.
No. It's Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah.
It's amazing and it's hysterical.
Well, I don't know how to do it. So. I don't know how to do it.
For some reason, my notes are not wanting to do that.
Aaron, what are you doing? You're looking for something.
Here we go. Okay. So here we are talking about the Richard the Lionhearted, and let me give you just a brief history of who he is and what he does. See, listen to Carl across the way.
Turn it down over there.
So we were just having a bad connection day. That's all. So what happens here is that Richard the Lionhearted, he is the king of England, and he decides that he's going to leave for a period of time to go out and help out with the Crusades. And we're going to talk about the Crusades. We're going to argue over the Crusades a little bit later on. But he decides that he's going to leave his throne for a period of time to go out and to help out with the King's Crusade. And I realize that we don't have a whole lot of background knowledge yet on what the King's Crusade was all about, but we will get there. And so he had a brother, and he decided to leave his brother John, as well as the King of France, who would be in charge while he was gone. Now, the King of France conspired here with John, who, if you know Robin Hood, John was not a very good guy, not a very good king, where Richard the Lionhearted was very good. So John and the King of France, they were working together to try to take the throne away from Richard. And I don't know exactly what the King of France thought would happen if they were successful, because then they would have had to share the throne, or he would have had to go to war against John. I don't know. Haley?
Wasn't there a guy that helped save King Richard that Robin Hood was based off of?
I'm not sure. You might have to do a little digging, and I don't know. Yeah, you could be right on that, but I don't have that at my fingertips, and I don't remember. So if you find something, let me know. So while Richard is gone, England is in a little bit of trouble as far as leadership goes. There's a lot of confusion, chaos, and disorganization with the government, specifically with the position of king. And so, of course, the story of Robin Hood comes out of this particular era, although Robin Hood is not entirely accurate, but the backdrop is very similar. So when you think and watch Robin Hood, think here, this period of English history. Now, King John was a very poor leader. He very much upset his own people. He upset the Pope, and he eventually is going to upset the King of France, who was trying to help him take the throne away from his brother. King John just did not get it. He did not get life. He did not get how to work with people. King John was just all around a very bad leader. And so in the course of his leadership, he ends up losing some of the power that his brother had earned. And his brother had been gone for a long time on one of these crusades, and they didn't know whether he was coming back or not. And so King John acted as if he was king, and he had every right to do so. And the people had gotten to the point where they started to organize a revolt. And they were going to take the throne away from his entire family, including Richard, because of the way that John had led. So in order to avoid this all-out revolution, he signs the Magna Carta. And this Magna Carta was a massive step in gaining rights for the common people. Now, John was given an ultimatum which said that either you sign this or we are going to take our armies, we're going to attack the throne, we're going to kill you, we're going to kill your family, and we're going to put a new king in power. So he really had no choice, but the Magna Carta did a couple of things that you should make sure to include here. So the Magna Carta limits the king's power. Why is that a big deal, to limit the king's power? Justin? He can't control everything. So if it limits his power, who does the king have to talk to before writing a law or passing a decree?
People.
He has to talk to the people. So it is putting power in the hands of which group? The people. Power to the people, right? So the people here are going to get more say in their government, say in their laws, because of the Magna Carta. Second thing it's going to do is it is going to state that the king is not above the law. Why is that a big deal? Okay, he can't just write laws that don't apply to him. That he has to be under the same standard as what the people he rules must follow. So, no more can you write laws such as Mr. Jones is allowed to drink coffee in class when the rest of you are not.
That's already a rule.
I know that's a rule.
I know.
We're not under.
Yeah, you guys, the Magna Carta does not apply to you guys. So understand that there is a double standard there. I will readily admit that. There's absolutely a double standard between students and teachers, and there should be. When you get to be a teacher and you get a 4-year degree and you come back and teach, and you can follow the same standards. Yeah, when? Yeah, maybe we teach it across the hall from you someday. Yeah. Or you'll have Mr. Reich's spot down there in the music suite.
Mr. Right.
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 Oh, I was like,
Say
yeah.
Mr.
Come by
They say right?
Miles,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Right.
It's okay.
It's confusing. There's 2 rights and then right.
So here we are putting them under the same rules. That was groundbreaking there too. And it also said that the king can be removed for violation of this law. Up until this point, the king could not be removed for anything except for assassination or if he willingly gave away his throne. But the Magna Carta says if the king does not follow the laws, then the people have the power to remove him. So if you go to the United States National Archives building in Washington, D.C., you can see a copy of the Magna Carta. I believe there are 7 of them that still exist in the world today, and we have one of them because many of our laws and our rules come down from Magna Carta. Yeah.
Isn't it true that the copy of the Declaration of Independence is held in the
Yes. National Archives. Yeah. So when we were there this past fall, we saw the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Articles of Confederation, and then we also stopped in a couple guys went in with me to see the Magna Carta. So it's really, it's pretty sweet because these are real documents. Yeah, it's a DC trip. So throwing a little plug out there for you guys in a couple years to do that. Oh yeah, yeah. So they were not very happy with me when we were sitting in the hotel room at about 9 o'clock and they were taking a government test in the hotel. Well, we were in the hotel lobby, and they all get their computers out, and I'm sitting there monitoring them taking their government test. Yeah, they were not very thrilled. They thought they'd get out of it.
Yeah.
Wait,
I digress.
Why did you make them not do any work? Like, why did they have to go to work and test?
It's part of the privilege of going on the trip. You still have to take care of your homework while you're gone.
Wait, you can't do like your homework like before or after the trip?
There were some things they could do before.
You couldn't do everything though?
Well, in my case, it was a test, and I gave them that option to take it before, but most of them didn't want to. They wanted to take it on the trip.
Why?
Because they were not ready before they left. There were a couple that didn't take it before we left. There were a couple that took advantage of that.
Did they
I don't remember.
do better when they took it before or after?
Well, it's too hard to compare because some of them may naturally do better on tests than others. So, anyway, let's talk about Edward. So, Edward is perhaps one of the most gifted kings of this entire medieval period. So, after the whole debacle with King John and the Magna Carta, which the Magna Carta was a positive thing, it was very good for the people and probably good for the throne of England anyway. Edward now, his claim to fame, or his most important thing, is his uniting of England. And he gets the people all on the same page and where they are willing to work together. We are skipping down the family tree here a little bit. So, Edward's a pretty popular name, yeah. It's just like a family name. I'm not sure the origin of why they started with Edward, but I actually need to get out my poster of the English family tree and family lines and get that up on the wall for you guys. So he unites England together, and while he unites them, he also helps to create Parliament. Parliament means to speak or to discuss your issues. So Parliament's goal was to talk through new laws or to talk through bad old laws that we need to get rid of, and they would work together to give the king advice and to talk about what they thought needed to happen. And when he creates Parliament, the way that happens is that he expands the Great Council, or the Cura Regis that had been started by William the Conqueror. So as he expands that council, he starts bringing in more people to advise him. And as more people get added to that list, they need a bigger room and they need another place to meet. And as they continue to expand Parliament, eventually they split it up into two different groups. They have a House of Commons, which is a body of people representing the commoners, the everyday merchants, everyday workers of England. And then they also had a House of Lords. Who do you think this represented? Nobility, yeah, the upper class. And so the way that he transitions from just the Great Council up until the Parliament is he says, okay, we're going to elect or select people from the common class that are going to represent you. We're going to select people from the upper class that will represent you. We're all going to meet together, and I want to hear your concerns and questions about our government, how we ought to operate. That's how Parliament is formed. And as we continue to talk about English history, we're going to see how Parliament gains more and more power, and they wrestle power away from the king. At this point, when it is first created, the king stands in the middle of the room, or he sits in the middle of the room, and all of Parliament comes in, and you've got the House of Commons on one side, the House of Lords on the other side. And he says, okay, guys, I want to hear your ideas. Your ideas, your ideas, your ideas. Okay, I'm going to go write a law. And I go back, I'm going to write a law. I bring it in front of Parliament, and I say, okay, here's a law I came up with. Like it or not, deal with it. Now, again, keep in mind, the Magna Carta said that any law that's passed, the king has to do what? He has to follow it too. He also not only has to follow it, but what happens if he writes a law that they don't like?
He leaves. He gets banished.
They can get rid of him. They can vote him out. So he's not going to write anything that's going to really upset the people. At least at this point, he's not going to. At this point, they don't have law writing abilities or powers. They have the ability to advise the king. And the king takes that advisement and he goes and he writes a law. As we move on, they are going to take over that power. And so it's important for us to understand that when Parliament was initially created, that the Parliament was simply to advise. As kings make bad decisions, Parliament is going to revolt and they're going to say, we want more power. And the king is going to have to hand it over to them. Otherwise, he's going to lose his position. And one of the things that becomes the critical moment here is when Parliament gets the power of the purse. Power of the purse. What's the purpose of a purse?
To buy stuff.
Buy stuff. It holds money, right? So when Parliament has the power of money, and they get that from the king, now who does the king have to ask for money from every time he wants something? Parliament. Now, if king comes to you, he says, hey, Parliament, I need money for a new castle. Or I need money for a new ship. Because I'm taking a vacation, with the missus and we're going to Netherlands or something. What are you going to say in return?
Oh, you.
Why?
Dream on.
But I really want it.
You can stay in your own castle and create weapons.
What's it going to take for me to change your mind?
Are you laughing?
Well,
There's got to be something you want.
More money.
Well, I can't give you more money.
Exactly, that's the point. So
How about
my question.
what if I give you the power to write laws? Or veto my laws? Oh, good one.
I
Okay.
can kick you
How
out
about we
of office
exchange?
for good.
New vote for the veto power. How's that work?
Okay.
You like that? Okay, done. So now you have
We can just
veto.
kick you out anyway.
Now you have veto power. Well, hey, I know you can, but that becomes messy and that can draw us into a civil war.
Oh.
So you want to avoid that if possible. But now I've just given you the veto power. You've given me money to buy my new boat and maybe my new castle. We'll see. But you give me money. I've given you government power. That is how power eventually transitions to where we see today. The Queen of England. How much power does she have? Yeah, none. I mean, she has the power there to look the part as the Queen of England, sit there and wave in parades.
She really doesn't.
She has no governing power.
Does she get paid to do nothing?
She is like a do-nothing queen. Good observation. However, it's not her fault.
Right.
It's because the role of queen is different today than what it was back then. She is simply a figurehead that is a representation of the people of England. And people have talked about that as, well, should we get rid of the ruling family in England? Because it's costing them a ton of money. And most British citizens say, no, we have to keep our family line. We have to keep our royalty. It's like a thing, you know? So,
Are they the only place like that?
no, there's lots of places in the world that still do.
No, there's
Wait,
like
so-
Spain.
so what-
somewhere.
Why would they spend so much money? I mean, I get they want to keep it going, but like, why would they keep on spending so much money if it's such a big problem?
Well, it's not a problem. It's just that they really don't have any say in the government anymore. Because prior to them, many kings in the past gave away all of the power of the monarchy to Parliament. And Parliament now makes all of the decisions.
So what does the money go into? Why does it cost so much?
Oh, just to take care of the royal family. I mean, the royal family.
Weddings.
Yeah, weddings, ceremonies,
Stop getting
travel, all that stuff costs more money, but that's part of what
So
they
they
want to do.
just do like.
Haley? We can come back to you. Oh. So yeah, we'll go down the line of some of the kings and queens of English history as we continue to move forward. But this is where it begins, starting to take away some of their power. I want to talk about crusades here before we get into our discussion. Yeah.
Does the Queen of England now, does she still get to sit in with the Parliament? Like
She can. Mm-hmm.
But she has absolutely no say.
Is there still a queen in Genovia?
Can she voice her opinion?
Yeah, can't she voice her opinion?
We studied geography last year, so
Is Genovia an actual place?
Can she voice her opinion in
Have to make
Parliament?
that up.
she could voice her opinion, yes. Now,
It's not a real place.
Justin asked, could the Queen voice her opinion in Parliament? The answer is yes. However, it doesn't carry any weight other than just out of respect. She could convince somebody based on her opinion to vote a different way, but it would be kind of like President Clinton going into Congress and giving a speech. He has no power in Congress today. He's retired. But just his name would maybe sway some votes another way. Does that make sense? Haley?
They still have the House of Commons and House of Lords. So if she went in there, would she be a representation of the House of Lords? Or no?
No. The House of Commons and House of Lords meet together, and so they sit on opposite sides. The British Parliament kind of looks like a small amphitheater stadium type of thing where they.
Is it like the picture we have on the PowerPoint?
I just didn't know that she was nobility, technically.
No, because she's royalty, so royalty is kind of like the third branch of government.
So there's still the common.
Mhm.
What?
Now they don't elect today based on your social class. So in the United States, we have a upper house and lower house in our government. Do you know that?
But
So that,
they don't represent.
but they did. Well, they did. Our U.S. government is modeled right after the British Parliament. Isn't that right, Chance?
Yeah.
Yeah. So which, that's a little government review for you, which branch of our government, which house of our government is modeled after the upper class? Yeah, it's a Senate. So the Senate is the upper house, the House of Representatives lower house. Now we don't vote on that based on social or economic status. They don't do that anymore in Britain either, but at one time they did.
So then who makes up the two? Like, what's the difference between the two?
There's not a whole lot of difference today. So today they vote, they elect people based off of location in the country. So they divide them up into districts. And
So your location determines which of the two
Yeah.
you're going in.
Yeah.
So would someone with mobility have more of a chance to get to the House of Lords, even though it's not like social status?
I don't believe so. I don't think it matters anymore, but I definitely believe that experience matters more. Yeah. So let's talk Crusades here and give you some background here before we get all mad at each other. Why did we fight in the Crusades? Why did the Crusades happen?
Invading Muslims.
Get the Muslims out of the holy city of Jerusalem. Okay, that is like the key point of why the Crusades happened. So, where are the Muslims coming from? Let's begin there. Okay, so Middle Eastern part of Europe, and they're moving further and further west. And as they move further and further west, they're encroaching upon Jerusalem. Well, Jerusalem's a big deal if you are a Catholic or even a Christian. Christian, Catholic, let's merge those together. And why is the city of Jerusalem so important? Haley? Okay, that's not where Jesus was born.
That's not what I meant.
But that is like the location of Christianity.
Like their special temple there too.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. Now, it is important to note here, and I don't think he's going to show up on the screen, but the Pope by the name of Urban II. Urban, like,
Urban Outfitters.
there you go. U-R-B-A-N. Urban II.
I was gonna say that too. Girl, you right.
He is the Pope that starts the Crusades. Now, little skirmishes were happening throughout Europe when the Muslims were invading already, but here we have the Pope authorizing and saying, okay, go get them. Is really the message that Urban said was, if you can organize an army, then I am going to give you my stamp of approval. Again, anything the Pope says is considered to be from God. So we have the support of the Pope, we have the support of God to go into march into battle. Think about Old Testament history. All right, what Old Testament stories do you see the nation of Israel consulting God before going into battle?
I know. Joshua and Jericho.
Joshua, Jericho, okay? So they use that as an example. What happened right after the Battle of Jericho? Wall came down, yes. Then who did Joshua go try to attack?
The little mountain people.
Yeah, what were they called?
I don't remember.
No.
I just remember it's on a mountain.
Little tiny town of Ai. Okay, what happened at Ai? They lost. Why? Why'd they lose?
They didn't have God on their side.
Right, they didn't consult God, and because they also had sin in the camp. Remember Achan? All right, he decided he was going to go and he was going to start collecting all kinds of stuff, and so anyway, that's a little bit of review there. Yeah, let's wait and ask your personal questions later.
Yeah, I said that right
Yeah, good. Okay, just glad we're clarifying that. I got distracted. So here we have the Pope authorizing and giving authorization here for these kings to go out and to fight the battle because they had some sort of holy reason behind it. They felt like they were justified to do that. Urban also wanted to show how powerful he was. I mean, when you think about this is a holy war between Christianity and Islam. So if the Pope can authorize all of these men to go into battle on his behalf, and they win and they beat the Muslims, then he can go to all those Muslim mosques and say, hey, we're better than you. Boom. Here's a cross. But also, think about how much power he must have had to be able to say to these European kings, I want your knights, send them, leave your own people unprotected, send these guys to go fight a holy war for me. I mean, that is power. That all of these nobility would allow for their military defense just to leave them for months at a time and maybe never come back. So, again, you need to understand how much power this guy had over the decision-making of the people of Europe. So, one of the things that Urban did was he promised people that they would have heavenly rewards. Yes?
Where would the Jews be during this, like between the Crusades and stuff?
So many of the Jews had been dispersed from Jerusalem. There were some that were still there, but many of them had been attacked, carried away as slaves. They had kind of kind of been assimilated into other cultures. Many of them maintained a lot of their Jewish beliefs and heritage. But as far as being a nation themselves, they don't exist at this point. So Jerusalem is occupied by Jews and Christians who are still battling as to whether Christ was the Messiah or not. They're not actually fighting, they just disagree about it.
So would the Jews join the Crusades against the Muslims to protect?
Yes. Well,
I thought they were also persecuted.
the Jews were? Yeah. So the Jews would have fought against the Muslims and would have tried to keep the Muslims out of Jerusalem, but because the Jews and the Christians and the Crusaders didn't agree, then they were attacked by the Crusaders as well. Yeah, so the Jews really struggled in this. Yeah, it was not good. Here's a key term here you need to know. It's called a plenary indulgence. This is a smooth move by the Catholic Church once again. So you got guys that are putting themselves inside of a metal can, and they're getting on top of a horse, and they're going out to fight in the name of Christianity.
I was really confused for half a
I know,
second.
I was
Knight's armor, metal can. Okay. So, yes, the plenary indulgence. I have not gotten to defining it yet. So he's trying to find a way to motivate some of these guys to fight their very best. So instead of having an indulgence just by itself, he offers us plenary indulgence. And in order to understand plenary, we need to go back and review what is an indulgence. It's a piece of paper, it's a certificate that gives you extra grace and helps you get to heaven. Now, a plenary indulgence, plenary means encompassing all or total forgiveness. It is like a full ride scholarship or get out of jail free card. Because it's coming from the Pope. And because we just talked about how powerful the Pope was, if the Pope says it, it must be true.
Wait, what does plenary mean?
Plenary means encompassing all or total forgiveness. So they offer these soldiers, it's like a Mission Impossible type of thing. Here's your mission, should you choose to accept it. Go out, defeat the Muslims, convert people to Christianity, and if you survive and if you come back, you're going to be rewarded with a plenary indulgence. And if you don't survive and come back, we'll still grant you one because of your sacrifice and honor for Christianity. Wow. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? Because if you win, you come back a hero, and you get this plenary indulgence. If you lose, you still get the plenary indulgence. You go straight to heaven. You skip purgatory altogether. I mean, you're in a better situation here than what most people are. So people signed up to go on these crusades because they knew that if this was really true, life was going to be good. So anybody who died be given eternal life on the spot. Some of these men went out for adventure. Remember we talked about in the last chapter, most people were born, lived, and died in a 30-mile radius. These guys wanted to see the world. So they signed up. Even if they didn't 100% agree with the Catholic Church or agree with what was being said, they said, I want to do it for adventure. Part of the reason why some people join the military. They want to go see the world, and they don't want anybody telling them what to do. So, glad you're smarter than that. So, ultimately, it came down to many of these knights were bored. There were no battles to be fought. I mean, granted, we had the Battle of Hastings, but that was over in England, and that was pretty minimal. Yeah, these are still knights. Like, that guy looks like a knight, right?
Well, yeah, but I thought that was just like the stuff.
We're still in
Same.
castles and knights right now.
Me too.
Okay? The Crusades were fought by knights in shining armor. Yes. So,
The nobility went out for the Crusades. None of the normal people went out.
no, there were others that did. Yes.
Did they wear the buckets? Even
Yeah.
women went out, right?
Yeah, there were some women that were involved in it.
Joan of Arc.
Yes. No, she's not Crusades.
I don't
No,
remember
she's
what
100
she
Years
is.
War.
She's from
Yeah, France. And we'll get to her in a little bit. So, yeah. Let me just... I really wanted to talk through the Crusades before we argued about it. We may have to come back to that next week.